What's up, YouTube? Capital G here. Alright guys, so today I'm talking number 107 Galaxy Eyes Tachyon Dragon, and this is the face card for Lord of the Tachyon Galaxy. And one of the most interesting things about this card is the fact that nobody seems to know that it exists. I mean, I haven't heard the slightest buzz or intrigue about this card at all. I haven't really heard people talking about it, haven't seen any videos, and it's kind of odd to me because when I look at this card, it's actually really competitive, which you don't generally see as far as face cards go. I mean, when I look at a booster pack and I see the face card, I almost immediately think it's a underwhelming boss monster that's ridiculously hard to summon, and the only reason that it's on the front of the pack was because it was probably used by one of the main characters in an iconic duel at some point of the manga, or, you know, the anime, something like that. But I mean, generally speaking, these U-Bells and, you know, Galaxy Eyes, Photon Dragons, and all this other garbage, I mean, you can't summon these damn things. They never see competitive play. This card is quite the contrary. I think that this card can actually make a pretty decent splash, and that's the reason why I'm talking about it. Like, you know, I knew it was the face card, I disregarded it, then I looked at the effect and I was like, oh my goodness, it's actually good. So let's break down the stats and everything else. 107 is a light dragon XC effect monster. It's rank 8, 3000 attack, 2500 defense. I think the stats are actually pretty stellar for a rank 8 monster, and it requires only 2 level 8 monsters to make. Now, anytime that we have a rank 8 monster that only requires 2 level 8s, the deck that basically jumps off the page is Dark World. And that's evident because the deck has basically an endless cycle of Grapha bounces, you know, and in addition to just beating your opponent over the head with Grapha, you know, when you're able to make these XCs that have their own intricate effects, you know, I think that you just add different dimensions to your game. You're able to answer a multitude of situations. It just makes your deck that much more versatile. I think that any type of additional power and advantage you're going to gain is just a good thing for Dark World. And, you know, I think that you can easily fit one of these in right next to your copy of Heliopolis, and I mean, you'll probably find that in a multitude of situations you're going to want to summon this guy. The effect reads as follows: once per battle phase, at the start of your battle phase, you can detach one Xyz Material from this card, negate the effects of all other face-up monsters on the field, and have their attack and defense become their original attack and defense. So what does that mean? That means that as long as you attempt your battle phase, you can potentially have a monster with a built-in skill drain. I'm loving that because A, it answers the bullshit stall cards. I'm talking cards like Marshmallow and Spirit Reaper, where unless you have like a Deck Deviant Dark World, or you happen to have skill drain, if you're not playing skill drain, you might be boned. You know, it gets rid of those cards relatively fast. Your opponent can't sit there and stall you out if they're playing, you know, Macro Rabbit and they're sitting under a Spirit Reaper or something like that. B, those monsters, those pesky ass monsters that have battle resistance cards like Gachi and ZENMAINES that aren't so easy to just run over and keep it moving, it deals with those cards because they can't activate their effects. And then C, those other really obscure monsters that just activate during the battle phase, cards like Neospatian Grand Mole. I mean, it completely answers all these different cards. So I'm definitely liking that fact. The effect continues to say, during your battle phase, if this effect was used this turn and your opponent activates a card effect, this card gains 1000 attack until the end of the battle phase. Also, it can attack twice during each battle phase this turn. So, okay, this is where I really started liking this card, because you look at the hefty requirements to make it. You look at the fact that you need 2 level 8s, and it's like finally Konami is getting it. Finally, they're making a monster where the benefits are equivalent to what it takes to make this motherfucker. I've never been opposed to having monsters that have high summoning conditions, but if you're going to make the summoning conditions high, then you have to make the benefit high. Otherwise, why should I even waste my time trying to summon this guy when I can just remove a light and a dark and summon a 3000 BLS? Like, really? You know what I mean? What this card does, and the whole, you know, if your opponent activates an effect, you're gaining 1000 attack. It sounds difficult because when I first read that, I was thinking, well, how many effects is your opponent going to activate in the battle phase that's actually going to leave this guy face up, you know, able to resolve his effect? If your opponent activates Mirror Force or D-Prison, you know, your monster is going to be dead. I mean, if your opponent even activates Book of Boon, he won't be face up to resolve his effect, so it's going to kind of be a moot point. However, you have to think about this. What if you attack into a SANGAN? What if you attack into a Mystic Tomato or a Giant Rat or a Card Trooper and your opponent draws a card? Bam! Those are all cards that activate during the battle phase, which means that not only is your guy going to go up to 4,000 attack, he's going to be able to freaking attack twice. That's what I'm talking about. So that was really, the second part is what tied it all together, and it said this is the benefit that's equivalent to how much it takes to freaking summon this guy. And when you have this guy in like Dark World, where you've got Graph a Bounce, Graph a Bounce, Graph a Bounce, I mean, this card can just utterly be ridiculous. I mean, can you imagine you attack a face down SANGAN, your opponent's like, oh, I'm gonna search for something, and then it's like, oops, nope, attack 4,000 for game, like, you know. So I look at this card and I'm just like, I mean, in a few decks, I think that this card is absolute staple, because I mean, I see this guy and I see Heliopolis, and I'm not seeing any other rank 8s really right now fucking with these two cards. I think that Konami hit it out of the park with this guy. He's got a built-in skill drain. He can attack twice, and then he gets 1,000 if your opponent activates a card effect. Granted, those Mirror Forces, Deep Prisons, and Book of Moons are obviously going to hurt this guy because he won't be face up. But if you catch your opponent sleeping, you attack into, you know, a SANGAN, you attack into a Tomato, you attack into a Card Trooper, anything that your opponent activates an effect, and it's like, okay, well, I'm about to fuck you up with 4,000 attack now. So let me know what you guys think of this card. I think it's out of the world. I think that this card is really nice, and talk to you later.